One of the most common things I hear from educators and course creators is that they ask, how do I increase student engagement? And so that's what this video is all about. The first thing that I really want to talk about is actually going to be what engagement looks like. And spoiler alert, there's actually 3 types of engagement, and your students may be more engaged than you realize. And then on the second half of the video, what I want is to talk about exactly what you, the instructor, can do in order to maximize student engagement. So be sure to stick around for that. My name is Dustin Bakkie, and welcome to the High Impact Teaching Lab, where we bring instructional design to the independent course creator. What does engagement actually look like and consist of? Well, I mentioned that there's 3 types. And so the first type of engagement that we see and that you all are probably familiar with is behavioral engagement. Now, what behavioral engagement is it is the typical raising the hand, answering the questions, commenting on the posts, things that we could visually see someone doing with their behavior in relation to the course and the course content. But that's not the only type of engagement. Although it is the most commonly thought of and most easily observed, there are other types. The second type of engagement is one of the hardest to see, actually, and this is cognitive engagement. And what cognitive engagement is this is where your students are actually very engaged with your course content cognitively. It is hard to see. That means they are deeply thinking about it, critically thinking about it, trying to wrap their heads around it, but it's all happening up here quietly. They might talk out loud or rewrite some notes, but it's really deep thinking. And what that could look like is something like this. And you might be tempted to say that student's daydreaming. They're zoning out. They're not paying any attention, when in fact, they're thinking very deeply and critically about your content. And so if you want to measure this, if you want to look for evidence of it, you really need to make sure that you are inviting them to share some sort of evidence of it. So this might be like guided questions or applications, things like that, something to kind of cue you into, have they been thinking about this critically or not? The third type of engagement is one that I'd argue is actually probably one of the most important types, maybe even more important than the other 2, because I personally believe that it precedes those other 2 types of engagement. And this third type of engagement is emotional engagement or affective engagement. And what that is it is when a student connects emotionally with the course content. And this is things like, how do they see it benefiting them, or how do they see themselves in the content or relating to their own lives? Is that content invoking some sort of emotional connection or emotional response? And when students become emotionally connected or emotionally engaged with content, that facilitates those other types of it. It makes them want to engage in a behavioral way or in a cognitive way. And so this is one of the most important ways that we can really work to foster engagement in our students. Okay, so we went through the 3 different types of engagement. We have behavioral, we have cognitive, and we have emotional. And remember, only one of those is clearly observable. So if you're trying to measure or gauge the engagement of your students in your course, you're going to have to look for and consider those other 2 factors that aren't as easily observed. And if you are finding this video helpful and this topic helpful, be sure to stick around, because I'm going to show you exactly what you can do as the instructor to pull some motivational levers in order to boost engagement. But also, I humbly ask that you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your other teaching friends, because this could change their feelings about their course and their students' engagement. Okay, we talked about those 3 types of engagement, and I referenced that there are some certain things that we can do to influence that. And I want to start by kind of talking about what our typical mindset is of students. We have this idea that these topics of engagement and motivation are personality traits. That is an engaged student. We are using it to describe an attribute of the student. That is a low motivation student. Again, we are using these terms in a fixed mindset that really kind of places a label on these students, which causes us to just say, that's how it is, and there's really nothing I can do. And so I want to show you what that looks like as we kind of go through the flow of this. And the idea here is that motivation is what sparks and cues engagements. Okay, when we think about our students from a fixed mindset, we have our students, we have our customers here at the top, and what we are saying is that we could divide these students up into two different groups. We could divide them into the low motivation group and the high motivation. These are traits of these students that we are thinking about here. And the thing is, once they are in these two camps, we follow a very linear progression. A high motivation student is going to show high engagement. A low motivation student is going to show low engagement. And what the research shows is that these lead to chances of success. So a student who is highly motivated is going to show high engagement and has a high chance of success. And the research shows this. On the other side, we think low motivation, we're going to see low engagement and therefore a low chance of success. And this is true when we look at motivation levels from the research perspective, we see it going in this way. But again, this is the fixed mindset. And what I want to tell you here is that this is not the mindset we want to adopt, because the research also says something else. It says that motivation is not fixed personality trait. It is not a fixed personality trait. And what that means, it means that we can change it. So let's look at what this looks like with us being able to change our students' motivation and the effects of it. Okay, so in this case, there's a filter that these students are going to go through. And that is the course creator, the instructor's motivation levers. There are certain things you can do pulling these levers that will influence their motivation levels. And that is influencing it both for good and for bad. And so if we think about this, the students or customers come into our course, and even before they come into the course, believe it or not, you are starting to influence their motivation levels. And so you pull these different levers, and what it does is it puts these students into these groups: high motivation, low motivation. Again, we are seeing here that these motivation differences are not tied to personality characteristics. They're tied to course environment and things that instructors do. The research supports this really strongly. Now we follow that through. High motivation, high engagement. Low motivation, low engagement. High engagement, high chance of success. Low engagement, low chance of success. And so what I want you to really take from this, what I want you to really hear, is that the students' motivation levels are dependent on the different things that you do as the instructor. This goes into course design, this goes into interacting with students. A number of different things go into this, and there are different levers that we can pull to influence this for good and for bad. If you want to know more about student motivation levers and the things that we can do as the instructor and course creator, check the description down below for a link to my upcoming crash course series where we talk about instructional design for the independent course creator, and I'm going to give you exact levers. So I'm going to tell you specific things that you can do to shift more of your students into the high motivation category. And when they're in that high motivation category, that means they're going to be more engaged, they're going to get more out of your course, they're going to be more likely to get all the way through it and experience the success that you promised them and become a lifetime fan. And so if that sounds like something you're interested in, check the link down in the description below, and I would love to hear from you. Let me know, what things do you do in your courses to motivate your students, to encourage engagement. That's one of the really cool things about learning is there's no set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you can do. It's such an area for creative design that we can inspire each other. So I encourage you to just share those in the comments below to help each other out. And again, share this video with someone else that you think might need to hear that message, that there are different types of engagement and that you, the instructor, have influence on it. We'll see you next time.